Somewhere this month, a person's going to pay $80 for a gym that they walk into 4 times. They're not the muscle bound regular who lives on the squat rack, and they're not battling a New Year's resolution that's already gone. They're the person in the middle, the member who means well, shows up now and then, and pays full freight for the privilege. That member, the one barely using the place, is the most profitable customer the gym has. Now, I want you to hold on to this nugget of economic information because it's not really about gyms. It's about a blind spot that runs through almost every kind of business on the planet. We spend enormous energy on two kinds of customers: the brand new ones. We obsess over the welcome, the onboarding, everything that happens at the top of the funnel, everything that happens in the first 5 minutes. And then we obsess over the super fans, the power users, the frequent flyers, the top tier, the people who would tattoo a logo on their arm. And if you think I'm exaggerating, remember that I worked for Apple for 6 years. I've met that guy. But between those two groups sits everybody else. The big, unglamorous majority who already signed up, they already know us, and they're already slowly drifting toward the door while we're looking the other way. So today, the gym that profits from the people who don't come, the loyalty card in your wallet that you forgot you had, and the software team that discovered its customers were begging for features the product already had. That's all coming up on Marginally Better.
From the global headquarters of Johnson Taylor in beautiful New Jersey, it's Marginally Better. Here's your host, Joe Taylor Jr.
Every business sorts its customers, whether it means to or not. There are the newcomers, the regulars, and the diehards. And almost everywhere you look, the attention flows to the two ends of a bell curve: the people just arriving and the people at the very top. The enormous group in the middle often gets treated like furniture because they're always there, so we stop seeing them. The trouble is, that's usually where the money is, and it's where the leaks are, too. So let's go to the gym, which is what I should have done today, but I wrote the script instead. Stefano Della Vigna and Ulrika Malminder published a study in the American Economic Review back in 2006 with a title that says it all: Paying Not to Go to the Gym. They got the actual records from 3 health clubs. That's about 7,700 members. And they matched what people paid against how often they actually walked in. And the members who picked the flat monthly plan, the one running over $70 a month, went on average about 4 times, which works out to more than $17 every time they swiped in, at a gym that happens to also sell a 10-visit pass for $10 a visit. So they could have paid less by the punch card, but they chose the membership instead. And they hung on to it. Those monthly members were markedly more likely to still be paying a year later than the people who'd signed an annual contract, because even though gyms are notorious for making it a little difficult to cancel your membership, canceling that gym membership means admitting something you'd rather not admit. So the gym's best customer isn't the regular sweating through a workout. It's the hopeful person in the middle who's paying every month for the version of themselves they keep meaning to become. The question is whether the business even knows that person is its bread and butter. Now, reach into your own wallet or look on your phone. The Bond Loyalty Report, which surveys this every year, found the average American belongs to around 18 loyalty programs, but is active in only about half of them. So, right now, you're a member of 9 or 10 things that you've probably forgotten. You're counted in somebody's quarterly deck, but you're doing nothing. And here's what companies often do with that. McKinsey, looking at how these programs are built, points out that loyalty schemes are designed around the very best customers: the top tier flyer with the VIP line, the white glove treatment, and invitation to special events. And meanwhile, the ordinary member in the middle gets a points balance that they'll probably never spend. which would almost make sense, except McKinsey's own numbers show where the upside hides. An active member spends about 10% more than the one who's enrolled but checked out. And the ones who actually redeem rewards, well, they spend 25% more than the typical members. So the growth isn't at the very top where you're already maxed out. It's in waking up the middle. So, why does this keep happening? The interaction designer Alan Cooper gave the cleanest answer that I've found in his book, About Face. Line up the users of almost any product, he says, by skill, and you get a bell curve. A few rank beginners on one end, a few true experts on the other, and then this giant bulge in the middle. These are people who are competent, comfortable, they're not going anywhere. And Cooper calls them perpetual intermediates because they mostly stay there. Beginners don't stay beginners very long, and experts are rare and hard to keep. So the middle is permanent and it's mostly everybody. But look at who ends up designing for whom. Cooper's point is that managers tend to fixate on beginners because that's who they picture when they imagine a customer. And the engineers often build for experts because that's who they are. And therefore, at most companies, nobody in the room represents the intermediate. So the biggest group of all gets designed for by accident, if at all. Which brings me to a company that fell into exactly that trap and then did something that almost nobody has the nerve to do. It tore the whole thing down. When we come back, a software team sitting on a mountain of customer complaints, all asking for the same thing. And the slow, awful realization that the thing people were begging for had been in the product the entire time, but they just couldn't find it. What that team decided to do about it became the way you use a computer today. That's up next. It's Marginally Better. I want to have a quick word about something our team put together for our clients because it lands right on top of today's whole theme. Now, here's the thing about your website. You can't see it like a stranger anymore. You built it or you've stared at it for years, so you navigate it like an expert. You know where everything is. And the people who built it with you, they're experts too. But the person you actually need to reach is that intermediate in the middle, someone who's heard of you, maybe visited once or twice, they roughly know what you do, and now they're trying to get one specific thing done before they give up and they close the tab. Nobody on your team experiences your website the way that person does, and that is a blind spot. So that's exactly why we built Website Reality Check. It's a way to teach yourself how to be that fresh set of eyes on your own website. I'll take you through an analysis the way that the middle visitor actually would so that you can discover where they get stuck, where they doubt you, and where they decide to give up and leave. Now, if you've ever had the feeling that your website is fine for you, but you're not sure if it's fine for them, that's the feeling this was built for. You can find it at websiterealitycheck.com. It's Marginally Better. I'm Joe Taylor Jr. Let's go back to the early 2000s to a team inside Microsoft with a problem most companies would kill to have. Their product was a runaway success. It was also, by their own admission, becoming a bit of a monster. The product, Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And the man I want you to follow, his name's Jensen Harris. He ran the Office user experience team. I want you to picture his world for a second. Word had started life back in the late 80s as a fairly simple thing with a blank page and a couple of commands. I am old enough to remember a version of Word that ran on DOS with a blue screen background. But every couple of years, Microsoft added more features, more buttons, more toolbars, and by 2003, Word Word could put roughly 30 different toolbars on your screen if you wanted it to. There was a paperclip named Clippy who brutalized so many of us, and his entire job was to help you find the features that you already owned and couldn't locate. at precisely the moment you did not want him around. So the program had everything. And that turned out to be the problem. Because here's what was landing on Harris's desk: customer requests, thousands of them pouring in, asking Microsoft to please add certain features to Office. And when the team actually read through the pile, they noticed features people were demanding, the things they swore were missing, were by and large usually already in the product somewhere. They were just usually sitting under a menu nobody was opening. Now, Harris's team had something most designers of that era only dreamed about: real data. You see, Office had a program, the Customer Experience Improvement Program, where users could opt in and let the software quietly report which commands they actually used. It was one of the earliest versions of the telemetry that's now become fairly common whenever you opt into sharing your data with an app for professional improvement. But this was still a pretty new idea in the aughts, and it told a clarifying story. In Word, the single most used command was paste. That's about 11% of everything people do in Word. The top five commands, paste, save, copy, undo, and bold, they add up to about a third of all of the clicking around in the entire program. Paste was number one in Excel too, and in PowerPoint. And after the first 10 commands or so, the graph just collapsed into a long flat tail. By Harris's own account, something like 90% of users were living inside less than 10% of the product. So sit in his chair for a minute. You've got a program with hundreds of features. You've got a customer base begging for things that the program can already do. And you've got a giant middle of users who are not beginners, they're not experts, they're just regular, competent people who plateaued years ago and never went any deeper because every new feature got buried under the last one. So the obvious move, the safe move, is keep doing what you've always done. Add another feature, ship another toolbar, keep those power users happy, and paper over everything else with another helpful sentient paperclip. Harris's team went the other direction. They decided the interface itself was the thing that was broken, and they were going to tear it down to the studs. No more menus, no more stacks of toolbars. They built something that put the right tools in front of you at the moment you needed them, surfacing the features that people had been asking for, and was designed deliberately for that competent person in the middle. They prototyped obsessively. Harris later said that the team generated so many variations that when he went to give a talk about it, he had something like 25,000 screenshots to pick through. The thing they landed on, the thing that we probably look at all the time and take for granted today, they called the ribbon. Office 2007 shipped with the ribbon. And the first thing that happened was a lot of people got furious because this is the cruelty of designing for the middle. Those power users, that small, loud group who'd memorized every menu, every toolbar location, they woke up one morning and found their furniture got moved around. Everything they knew was gone. They did not like it, and they let Microsoft have it. You go back and read some of the comments on Harris's own blog from that time. Whew, there's something. Worst idea ever. People announcing that they were ripping it out. They were rolling back to old versions. Entire offices were in revolt. People were threatening to find old versions of WordPerfect and things like that. The experts, the ones who'd mastered the old way, they experienced that change like it was a punishment. And they were the most vocal customers that Microsoft had. Now, around the same time, Google had just released its first version of Google Docs in beta, and that was based on some code that it had picked up from acquiring a few startups. So those protesters weren't making empty threats. There were some emerging alternatives, along with some old school competitors that were still on the market. It would have been easy to lose your nerve right there. The loudest voices in the room are almost always the experts because they're the ones with the most invested in how things already work. And if you only listen to the volume of those complaints, you would put those menus right back. But the bet wasn't on the loud end of the curve, it was on the silent middle. The millions who never wrote a comment, never memorized a menu, and now, for the first time, could actually see what their software could do. And that bet held. The ribbon didn't just survive the backlash, it became the template. And 20 years on, it is still there. Look at the program that you're probably using to read your email or write a document or build a deck right now. The strip of tabs and tools across the top that's organized probably automatically based on what you're actually doing moment to moment. That is a version of the ribbon, roughly 20 years on, copied across the entire tech industry. Microsoft took all the heat from experts to serve the people in the middle who would otherwise have never said a word. And those people in the middle, it turned out, were almost everybody. So that leaves a question worth carrying away today. When your loudest customers and your most numerous customers want opposite things, and at some point in your journey, they will, whose voice are you actually building for? I want to leave you today with something that you can do this week, because the good news in all of this is that the forgotten middle is not a problem. It's actually an opportunity that's sitting right there. Think about where your attention naturally goes as a business leader. You celebrate the new customers. Every fresh sign up, you ring that bell. You love getting that first sale, but there's a little dopamine hit in it. And so you end up building the entire funnel to chase that high. Meanwhile, you may also be cherishing your superfan, the one who refers everybody, leaves glowing reviews, shows up to all your events. They are a joy to have around. But ask yourself, honestly, when was the last time that you thought hard about the customer that's been with you for 18 months, uses you out of habit, has never complained, but doesn't rave either? The one who's perfectly satisfied and also one mild annoyance away from drifting over to a competitor without ever really telling you why. That person is the biggest growth driver in your business. And Alan Cooper's insight from earlier is the key to the whole thing. That customer is not a beginner that you need to handhold, but they're not an expert you need to impress. They're a competent grown-up who wants to get something done without friction. Despite what they might tell you, they don't really need new features. So, like the office users begging for tools they already owned, they probably don't even use half of what you offer now. What they need is for the thing they already want to do with you to get a little easier, a little bit clearer, a little more respectful of their time. So, pick your middle. The customers who've been around a while and use you regularly and rarely make a sound, and then go find out what's annoying them. The small recurring friction they've decided to live with, because complaining isn't worth the trouble. You won't find it in your 5-star reviews, and you won't find it in your churn report because those people haven't left yet. So you have to go ask. And when you fix that one small thing for the quiet majority, you won't win a headline, you won't get to ring the bell, but you'll win something better. You'll win the people who were always going to decide your future, but never planned on telling you so. That's our show for this week. If you take one thing away with you this time, I'd like it to be this. Your business doesn't live or die at the edges. It lives in the middle with all the regulars who might never call themselves fans, but they would be really hard to replace if they left. Go talk to them. They've been waiting for you. And if you want to start with the place that middle customer meets you most often, your website, that's exactly what we built the website reality check for. Use promo code Cooper for $20 off as a reward for making it all the way to the end of the show. Thanks for listening to Marginally Better. If something here was useful, do me a favor and pass it to one person who runs a business. That's how this show grows, one forwarded episode at a time. And leave us a review while you're at it over at Apple Podcasts. That is somehow still the single best way to help one more business owner find the show. For show notes and the research behind today's episode, head to marginallybettershow.com or just follow over to the show notes in whatever podcast player you love. Marginally Better is a Califrax production. Our producer is Nicole Hubbard with research by Connie Evans. I'm Joe Taylor Jr.
Califrax, mean little planet.